Harry, this is phenomenal. This facility, this place, we had a rough start getting here, but we're so happy that we made it and it's worth it. So, Harry, thank you for joining the channel and thank you for letting us be a part of your program.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate you coming out and checking out a match. You know, you got to see the back end of the
That's
day.
fine.
Tough one with Delta Airlines. I hope you're listening and watching this because
I would like my
Phil's
refund.
got something to say.
I have so many rants about Delta, but that's not the point today. The point is about you. Mm-hmm. So for you, where do we start? Because you're from East Lansing. You played at Michigan State. You were deemed an All-American here. And then you been around a couple times for coaching, and then you ended up back here. And what's funny is Harry's only 2 years older than me. That's what's crazy about this. And being a head coach of a top 25 team, how did this start?
I mean, I think it starts just growing up in East Lansing, right place, right time with the tennis team. I ended up getting a spot just by honestly being lucky. I had a great relationship with the coach and my predecessor, Gene Orlando. And, you know, it's funny. 5-6 years ago, I never would have envisioned being in this spot, but one thing led to another, and here we are. And just really excited about the guys that we have, the program that we're building, and you know, when you're doing things for the first time in program history and school history, it's a lot of fun.
And for you too, how did you end up coaching at Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, I finished playing at Michigan State in 2015, and honestly, when I finished at the NCAA tournament, we reached the semifinals of the NCAA tournament. We lost to a tough Texas Tech team. Yeah. I walked off the court. I was content with what I had achieved in tennis. I was a good doubles player, not very good in singles, but you know, I was ready to move on and take the next step in life, and you know, go take a 9-to-5 office job, this and that. And as I did that, I worked for the Alzheimer's Association for about 6 months there. I realized that I can't sit still for too long, and then I started coaching, juniors in the area just to make some beer money to go out on the weekends and things like that. And lo and behold, I ended up really liking it. Luckily, I was at a great academy that had some great juniors that you could really, work with, that were competitive and were committed to getting better. And from there, started talking with Gene, my predecessor, and just the assistant coaching job opened up. He felt like I was the right guy for the job, and I decided to give it a shot, and had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, as a player, you watch your coaches and you just think, oh, they just play and practice, and then they go home and they have a great time. It's a really nice, easy, relaxing, fun job. And then I quickly learned all the administrative side of things, the compliance, the recruiting, the fundraising. I mean, we could go on and on about all the duties, but it's been great. And no 2 days are the same.
And for you too, kind of going, and from some of the stuff and getting to know you this past weekend, and you being kind enough to drive me to and from some places, getting to know you a little bit more in those drives with you too. When you first took this job, you were at Illinois, and you just started at Illinois, and with Brad in the school that we visited as well. Like, that program's also an elite program like this one, big facility, big pedigree, has had national champions, world number ones, Grand Slam champions as well. What made you what was that process like of going immediately from Illinois to here?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, obviously, I was the assistant coach at Illinois for about a month and a couple days there, and really that was just Brad Dancer, who's a huge mentor of mine. We still talk, weekly at the very least, and he played at Michigan State. And I always tell this story because I always love giving Brad a little bit of crap, but he recruited me when I came out of juniors, and I was not a very good player. I was maybe a 4-star recruit. And
not
wasn't
very
getting,
good, still 4-star.
But I wasn't getting interest from Big Ten schools outside of Michigan State being from here. Yeah. And then Illinois all of a sudden comes in the mix, and this is, 2010, 2011. I think they reached the finals of the NCAA tournament in 2008 with Brad as the coach, and all of a sudden he shows up to some of my practices and he starts recruiting me, and I thought I was this hot shot, like, man, I'm getting recruited by the top team in the nation, this and that. And it didn't dawn on me till later. Brad's from this area, and he was coming back and visiting his family, and then he'd stop by a practice, and it was a recruiting trip for him. So, Brad, if you're watching this, I'm on to you. I've used that trick a little bit in my
I am being deceived.
But no, Brad, throughout my college career, every time we played Illinois, he would always give words of encouragement. He'd check in on me, and then as I became a coach, while I was at, Michigan State, I actually visited the Illinois program before I took the job at Michigan State just to see what it's like at this level and coaching in the Big Ten. So he was unbelievable to me, and we still have a great relationship. But it was really cool. Obviously, learned a lot from Brad in that month, and continue to learn a lot from him as I pick his brain about being a head coach and the pressures and the responsibilities there. And I think it was good. I really wish I was able to stay there longer and just get a different perspective viewpoint. But when the opening of a Big Ten school where you grew up at, Power 5 conference, and I think we can do some really big things here. When that opens up, it doesn't open up very often, because I think in the 110-year history of Michigan State tennis, there's been 6 head coaches. Yeah. So Gene was here for 31 years. If I make it to 10 years, I'll be shocked with the pace we're going at now. But okay. It's been really, really cool, and just a privilege now to be here as the head coach. I mean, that's what this is about providing these players professional opportunities, the best competitive, matches in the nation, stuff like that. But really with Brad, I think, number one, I think he's really, really passionate about coaching. You could call him, and I've done it a million times, and I've seen him do it with his players. You could FaceTime him, and he could be at his son's football game or baseball game or whatever, and he'll be on the FaceTime, and his son will hit a ball, like, good job, and then you'll be talking about your forehand on the run or whatever it is. So he's just constantly thinking about what he can do to improve his players, and really respect that. And then also, I think for him, I mean, we had a conversation about it yesterday. As he's spent more time as a head coach, he's gotten a little bit older, but man, he's in the trenches with the guys. He's doing fitness. He's hanging out with them. He's hitting with them on the court. And you look at him and you wouldn't be able to guess his age, because he looks, really, really young, and he's stayed in great shape. And honestly, he probably beats me in a foot race or a push-up competition to this day. But I think that's been really cool for him to spend that quality time with the guys in the trenches. Yeah, and for you too, it's hard to, again, and I'm going to point out your age just because it seems like it's a question that I feel like a lot of parents would get when you have a younger coach, when you have someone that's close to age in the guys. And when I was a volunteer assistant, it was probably one of the things that I felt like was tough to differentiate myself between you and the players, because you can have the same personality. You can talk to them like you were still in college, and when you recruit and you have kind of the same mannerisms as them, is it hard to kind of bring yourself out of that mindset and be a head coach? Because for me, I feel like I have kind of a upbeat personality and goofy personality, so sometimes I would get stuck talking to them as they would talk to me, and you have to kind of put yourself above that as the head coach. What's that like being in this? Yeah, I think, being a young head coach, I think you got to be comfortable in your skin. Okay. And you got to be yourself. And I think the guys would see right through it if I tried to, be very black and white and act a little bit older than I am. I mean, I'm young, and I kind of lean into that. Okay, good. And, we do make tough decisions, and I make the tough decisions at the end of the day. It's not easy. Those are uncomfortable conversations. But I do think that the one thing that the guys respect about me is that I'm trying my best, and I'm trying to put them in positions to succeed, and trying to do what's best for this program. And I think they see that at the end of the day. If it's a lineup decision and they disagree with it, they disagree with it. But at the end of the day, it's not personal, and they understand that everybody's going to get a fair shake in this program, and you're gonna, if you put the work in, you're gonna get the opportunities to be the best you can possibly be. And you look at our schedule, and these guys are playing some tough teams, and in the fall we're chasing opportunities all over the nation. So, I think that's it. And then also, I just think it's such an advantage in today's world with recruiting, just being able to connect with them. You kind of see the trends and what they're going through, and I think it's refreshing for them. I don't think they want to be, lectured about, the history of the game or whatever it is. They want to connect with somebody. They want to have a relationship. And I think you said it to me, but yeah, I view myself as quite a bit, but a big brother to these guys, and try to nudge them in the right direction. And create positive outcomes for them.
Yeah, and as a coach too, is there a certain coaching formula or coaching style that you're trying to replicate or you're trying to instill in these guys? Because it's hard to ask a coach something like that because you may not have established it. Again, if you really think about it, last year was your first year taking over the program, and this is your first fresh year. And I say fresh as you've brought in guys you've recruited. You're establishing routines. You've established everything, and you've established maybe some of the routines from a former coach. So what would be your coaching philosophy right now for this team?
The one thing that I talk about with my assistant coaches, Mike and Kazuki, is like, in terms of an overarching philosophy, I'm not 100% sure that I'm set on something yet, but the one thing that I want guiding our program and every decision we make is we're going to do what's best for the individual player. And I think a lot of programs across the nation, sometimes the individual gets sacrificed for the team. And our conversation with these players in recruiting is we want you to have the best professional career you can possibly have. And so we want to make sure that when we make a decision, whether it's a scheduling decision or a training decision, or it's a conversation about routines or behavior on the court, like, we want to make sure that conversation is shaped around, hey, what's best for you? What's going to make you the best player? So that's a very individualized approach. Sometimes you got to be more stern with the player. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more collaborative with a different player, but we try to do that. And another thing I like to do is just, I don't want to do things just because they've been done before. One thing that we're huge about here is we just want to do things different. We want to be unique. We want to stand out from the rest of them. And you see it from what we're trying to do with our match day experience, with the intros and things like that. We've got some cool like jerseys and things that guys wear, and the way we travel and things like that. We just try to keep it refreshing, experiment, and be on the cutting edge, because I do feel like tennis is a traditional sport. Guys really like to hold on to all the traditions, and for me, I'd love to shake it up. I think that's what brings fans in. That's what makes it more exciting. And I think as this younger generation starts coming up, I think you're going to see a lot of those changes.
So can you talk to us about the jerseys and the numbers and the names on the back? Because that's not a thing in tennis. Like, you saw it in maybe World Team Tennis, or you see it at Laver Cup or United Cup and things like that, but that's more of the country or the team they're playing for. Here you have players have their own individual numbers and have their names on the back. Can you talk to us a little bit about that kind of tradition or the reason behind that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up reading Slam magazine and Sports Illustrated and things like that. So I'm a basketball fan at heart. I love that sport. Honestly, it's, for me, maybe my favorite sport to watch. And I just thought it was cool, and again, I think the guys, they feel a little bit more like they're a team, a sports team, when they have those jerseys and numbers, and it's different. The guys have fun with it, and there's always an argument over who gets what numbers. It comes down to seniority, but
that's fair.
Similar to the NBA and NFL, you can barter. And maybe it's a guy switches times for an individual with you, or gives you some rides, or pays for your lunch or something, and you can get their jersey number. So it creates a lot of fun. And later this season, we're actually just going to be straight up rocking basketball jerseys at matches. So we're going to be changing it up a little bit. So we're excited. Our equipment manager has a lot of fun with us. Okay. What
are we doing, like classic Spartan down the side of the, or can you tell us or give us a little preview of that?
You'll have to see it, but it's going to be our blackout jerseys. We kind of created them after the basketball team's blackout jerseys as well. So we're still working through those, but they should be good to go for our matches February 2nd and February 4th. So
that was the original day we were supposed to come, but we decided to come this weekend. And for you, if you were to have a number, what number would it be? Or do you have a number?
That's a good question. I don't really have a number. I think if I was going to do it, I would probably pick number 7. I think it's a cool number. I think it's I I played a lot of Madden 04 growing up, so Michael Vick was on the cover of that one, and I grew up.
I love it.
You know, playing with him is essentially a cheat code as quarterback when I was playing the
Still
franchise.
is in Madden 24.
Yeah, so I think number 7 would be a good number.
Okay, I like that. And for you too, for you being a part of this program, being a Big Ten program, and seeing the level that you're trying to create, how do you manage it all? Because it's an honest question. Like you see it too, and I see it just teaching at a club. You see all the back end of it, and was that eye opening when you first started the job when it came to all the back end stuff? Because you have a banner here. You're an All-American. You've done it as a player, but now you're doing it as a coach. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest difference for you, kind of seeing that back end work?
So, in a nutshell, I would say there's a phrase of like, they always used to say it when somebody was playing a really good player in football and they had to scheme and film and stuff. They would say, "Oh, he keeps the head coach up at night." You know, trying to scheme against Michael Vick. Let's say he keeps the head coach up at night, and you always hear that saying.
Yeah.
But it's not until you're the head coach when you start to actually lose sleep over things, and that's been the biggest thing. Is like just that the buck stops here mentality. Yeah. You have to make the final decisions. It's on your, essentially on your racket, figuratively, of, what do you want to do? Do you want to play this team or do you want to play that team? Do you want to, what's your lineup going to be? Who do you want to play at 1? Who do you want to play at 2? Do you want to train today? Do you want to take the day off? Do you want to work out 5 times a week, 6 times a week, 4? So all those decisions, they matter. And you try to be as thoughtful as you possibly can be. You also try to delegate as much as you can, but at the end of the day, there's definitely a lot of, you just put a lot of pressure on yourself because you want to be good and you want to compete in a tough league. I mean, you look across the Big Ten and the Power 5, these freaking teams are good, man. Yeah. These teams are good.
There's no bad team in any conference that you play anymore. Yeah. Everyone has a baller. Everyone has like a tough matchup. It's not even the players, it's just the way they play against you and the way they play on court. So I feel like it's you have to bring it every single time. Yeah,
for sure. So that's been the biggest adjustment. And a lot of coaches kind of told me when I became the head coach, they said, "Hey, it's going to be different when you sit in that head coach's seat." Yeah. And I kind of laughed it off. I had been doing a lot in as the assistant coach, but man, it's definitely different. The mentality's different. The pressure's different. And it's fun though. I mean, it's literally dynasty mode in NCAA football. Like you're creating the team, and that's the fun part is that, you can mold and shape the team in whatever way you want. And, there's a lot of duties involved, but it's also just a blast every day competing with the guys and going out recruiting and fundraising and things like that.
I like how you put it as dynasty mode because it's it's like a way to relate to it, and no one really says how it could be similar to that, especially nowadays in the NCAA and talking to other coaches and understanding that because, again, you have the final verdict and you get to do I don't like saying this, but you get to do whatever you want to a certain degree because you have to really think about how this is going to impact everyone, not just your players, but the administration, and everything like that.
Yep.
Does that scare you?
Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, I always...
Not to be like blunt or anything, but it's like...
My wife always puts it in perspective. My wife is a school psychologist, so she's my secret weapon. She's very, very good with, how to manage guys in certain situations if they're struggling with something mentally or if they're going through something. And at the end of the day, you have to remember, these kids are very, very successful. I mean, our team GPA, I think, was like a 3.5 last semester. Yeah. So in terms of, like, at the end of the day, wants and needs, like, these guys are going to be good. They're going to be winners at life. They're getting a great degree at Michigan State. Yeah. They're traveling the world playing professional tennis. So always just reminding, as our Greek stud Aristanos likes to say, life's bigger than tennis. So sometimes it can feel life or death, and you can get those nerves or that stress. But it's also just remembering, hey, we're here. We're trying to have a positive impact on these guys, develop them. But at the end of the day, they're going to be all right. They aren't going to live or die by this tennis stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And talking about your players, in the fall, first time in program history, I believe, correct?
Everything.
Just everything. Literally you like set the program record for everything with your All-Americans. talk to us about that experience and what it's like to bring someone like Ozan and like all these guys that have been contributing so much success to your program so far.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that experience this past fall.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really started off, we started off with a hidden duel at Wake Forest, and that was kind of getting into the mix of things. And then the second week of the fall, we had a few guys go to Battle in the Bay in San Francisco. Battle in the Bay is, for me, the toughest college tennis tournament of the fall. I think in that draw, there were probably 4 or 5 guys in the top 12 of the rankings right now. And Ozan and Ronnie, we sent them there. And then we also sent 2 guys, Max and Sebastian, up to the Milwaukee Tennis Classic. And we were sitting at the table eating lunch at the club at the Battle in the Bay in San Francisco. And Ozan and Ronnie kind of joked like, hey, we'll see each other in the finals, because they were on the opposite sides of the draw. Yeah. And it was a complete joke. No one at the table actually believed that. And then it was really impressive what they were able to do. I mean, Ronnie beat Iñaki Montes. Ozan beat a great player in Carlos Ozalans of Illinois. Yep. Jack Pennington Jones. Ronnie beat Colton Smith of Arizona, who's a really, really tough player. And they ended up meeting in the finals of the Battle in the Bay, and they played a 3-set match. Ozan ended up winning. But it was at that point that I was like, we could be onto something. And then in Milwaukee, Sebastian and Max, they took home the doubles title. They did really well in singles. And from that point on, it was just like, bang, we're cooking. And, we cap off the fall with Max and Ozan winning fall nationals, which I like to call the pumpkin spice title to keep those guys motivated. Because obviously the big one you want to win is in the spring. NCAA individuals, but this one was a national championship. Next year that will be the NCAA championship, but this year it was the ITA championship, and it was a great win, but still trying to keep those guys motivated, and they're number 2 in the country right now. We want to get them up to number 1, and we're really excited about just the team that we have, from Ronnie to Eris and Ozan, Tame, a freshman coming in, Max, David Say, some guys that we've had here that have really developed, and we feel like we've got a good recipe, and the guys are just having fun with it. And that's one thing we talk about honestly in the recruiting process is other teams, they're chasing history, or they're chasing their own shadows in terms of they've been great for a long time. Yeah. And so there's a little bit of pressure there where they have to perform or else they're failing. Yeah. And for us right now, we don't have that big of a shadow. I mean, if I'm the shadow and I had an All-American career here, but man, I wasn't a very good tennis player, and I'm the guy that these guys are looking back like, oh, I got to beat that, they'll be just fine. So they don't have that. I feel like
they already have, really. With
exactly.
Max and Ozan crushed it.
Yeah,
like your first full year, and I like how you put it as chasing your own shadow, because you're trying to just beat your own expectations in that sense. But when you have guys that are successful like that and are number 2 in the country, how do you maintain that success with them, or how do you kind of reset their mindset coming into the spring and for the full season? Yeah,
I think 2 different stories there with Ozan. Like, that guy, from the day that he's picked up a tennis racket, he's wanted to be the best in the world. So for him, it's another step on his journey. Like, he's not satisfied with that championship, and he's been playing professional tennis. He's been training his tail off all off season, and he's actually playing one down in Indian Wells, a challenger today. So he's motivated until he gets to where he wants to be, which is top 10, top 5 in the world. And then Max is a little bit different, because Max came in, he was kind of an unheralded player from the Midwest, got some interest from some Big Ten teams, but a lot of teams overlooked him, and he's had a chip on his shoulder the whole time. So for him to be an All-American, first team All Big Ten, national champion, I mean, that's, for him to see that, if he would have, his senior year of high school, if we would have told him that, he wouldn't have believed it. Yeah. And so keeping him motivated is always a big thing on our mind, because he's achieved a lot. But with him, his talent is incredible. His ball striking ability is incredible. So trying to keep him working and motivated is definitely really, really important, because he's a big part of what we're doing. Oh, 100%. And kind of looking at the pro side of it, and when you look at a guy like Ben Shelton bringing this college energy to the professional level, what's your take on that college mentality being, I guess, implemented into the pro atmosphere? Because for some, it rubs people the wrong way, especially with Ben Shelton is like an anomaly. Like he achieves so much and is kind of sprung onto the scene as fast as he can, but still has that college fight in him, and has that talk, has that swag that you would see on a dual match here. And do you think that's
What do you think about that for the pro level?
I think it's amazing. I mean, I really think there's a lot of traditionalists that don't really like it. But for me, I just think it's cool. And you look at, I'll bring it back to the NBA. The NBA is a sport of personalities. It's about superstars. It's about, what stupid decision is Russell Westbrook making under pressure?
Yeah.
Or, how is LeBron reacting? You can see the emotions on his face. And I think tennis is very similar in that. If we can sell the personalities, that's why you see Kyrgios is so
popular.
Yeah, he's a lightning rod because you can see the emotions on his face. He's a personality. He's going to say it how it is in the media. So I think you have to have a balance. Obviously, you can't have everybody being a Kyrgios out there, but it's good to have those guys. They change it up, and you do get the Federers, the Nadals, and to an extent the Djokovic kind of he's got a great personality, but some guys are just machines and they just do everything the right way. But I think to bring fans in, you got to have the personalities and you got to market those personalities. So things like Breakpoint and some of the other things that are coming out, I think are great. It gives people a connection to the sport and to individuals that are competing. But I love it. We need more of it.
Did you like Breakpoint?
I wish it would have delved into more of the drama and things that happened in that season. I feel like they kind of let things slide with Wimbledon and Kyrgios' run. I thought they could have really delved into that in the first season. I haven't watched the second season yet, but I do think they did a good job of, I thought the storyline of Berrettini and Talmanovic was really, really interesting. But I really think that's what people, and my wife, she doesn't know a lick of tennis. She doesn't even know how scoring works still. I've dated her for 12 years and she was enjoying it, but I really think they could have leaned into that aspect of things, kind of the personal side of things and the mental just battle that goes on a day-to-day basis, because I think there's a lot, and you see, your channel does it. The Changeover podcast is another channel that's doing a great job. Some people are starting to highlight those day-to-day grinds, even on the lower level of tennis. And it's really cool to see. I think it's really entertaining, and that's what this is about, is providing entertainment to fans.
So what would you do besides bringing that personality? What would you do if you could change one thing about college tennis and one thing about pro tennis? What do you think you would do?
Ooh, good question. My big thing is I would 100% lean into subs. I would love it if we could do a soccer-style substitution. And so essentially, I play my 1 through 6 honestly in any order that I want. I can put my 6 guy at 1, my 2 guy at 5, whatever it is, and then you have a reserve. Let's say we have 2 guys we can sub in at any time, like soccer. You can just plug them in. So if I'm, crushing it at one singles and the other team has the opportunity, if they're down 6-0, 3-1, they can sub somebody in and try and change up the momentum of that match. And I think the argument there is that it's not really the same as professional tennis, and maybe the level drops because not as many pros come to college because the format would be so different. Yeah. But that being said, I think a lot of players would really enjoy it, and our format is already different from what the professional team, professional tours plays, because of the no ad scoring and things playing like lets. That. Yeah, playing lets. So I think that would be a lot of fun. I think it would create a different wrinkle in the competitive matches.
I like that a lot. What would you do on the pro tour?
On the pro tour, I would with the pro tour, I would just allow cheering at any time.
Really?
Screw it. Let them yell during the point. Let them try and get in people's heads. Every time I talk to somebody that's not a tennis fan, they always talk about how they have to be quiet at matches, and that's their biggest qualm. Like, if they could be loud and yell, I think they would be much more engaged. And I understand the history and the tradition of the sport, but I think that would be a blast.
It's different because I think now they're starting to let people move in the upper bowl, and when you see people move in the upper bowl and the guy on the court is like looking up like,
that's crazy.
That makes no sense to me, and I understand that it's like, it's concentration, but if you can have just people move and like not their eye line, I feel like that should be okay. Yeah. But then again, to each its own. Some people like it, some people don't. But at the end of the day, it's not. If we could change it, we would. If we don't, we can't. So, and I think my last question to you is, and thank you, Harry, for allowing us to be here and be a part of your program for this weekend. My last question to you is, what's the goal you're setting for this year?
Oh man, that's tough.
There's a lot, but
as Ozan likes to say, we're just happy to be here. Every single day, we try to be grateful to just have the opportunity to compete and be in the position we're in. Obviously, the coaches, the ITA, ranked us at number 22 in the country. But really, my goal would be, we want to compete for a championship in the Big Ten. We want to compete on the national stage. But I think we could call this season a smashing success if we're hosting NCAAs at the end of the year. Yeah. And that would mean top 16 ranking, and maybe bring a team from the South up here to play in NCAAs.
That would be good.
Hopefully it's a nice 52-degree day and windy in May when we play NCAAs. But I think that would be a smashing success for us. But at the end of the day, with all we've achieved, we're playing with house money right now.
Yeah.
And that's a free feeling for the guys. They can go out and swing and play free. So
awesome. Thank you, Harry. I really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Phil.
Thanks. That was perfect.